Hi, Brandon. Welcome to Unleashing Light. It's awesome to have you here today.
Thanks so much for having me. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So, Brandon is a spiritual life coach and lives in the area of Maine. And he is also starting a program on quantum forgiveness. So, Brandon, if you just want to say a little bit about that, I think that'd be amazing.
Yeah, so I'm building a wait list right now. The course isn't finished yet, but please feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to get on the wait list. But it's called Quantum Forgiveness. And I don't know if you've ever seen the show Quantum Leap.
Yeah.
Uh, it's kind of a play on words. Part of it is related to quantum leap. So it's a practice of forgiveness that allows you to kind of do a quantum leap into a whole nother reality and go from living one way, being one person, and then all of a sudden your life is just completely different in a positive way, and it's almost like you're living as a different person, but you're still the same person. Also, it's like if you research the word quantum,
Mhm.
it relates to this Latin term quanta, which is like a particle or a quantity of something. So it's like the particle of forgiveness or the essence of forgiveness. And it's like shifts reality. Like you literally move from one existence into a completely new reality you rewrite the past and transform the future.
Amazing. And so Brandon has had, I believe, two near-death experiences. So I'm assuming this was inspired by that experience and then some other experiences you've had in your life.
It was really the story of forgiveness for myself started back in around 2015 when I was working the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, and a big part of that is forgiveness. They say in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous that resentment is the number one offender. So resentment is the number one reason why alcoholics drink.
Hmm.
So I had to learn how to let go of resentments of different things that happened in the past. Funny enough, it also says in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which connects to that idea of quantum forgiveness, that we have been rocketed into a fourth dimension of existence beyond which we've ever dreamed.
Interesting.
And yet he doesn't elaborate on what that means in the big book. But what is the fourth dimension of existence? It's time, right? So you have three-dimensional reality, and then the fourth dimension is time. And that's exactly what forgiveness is, really, is it kind of allows you to change the past
Yeah.
and the future and
Sure.
to be more in the present.
That's beautiful. So, well, look, Brennan, let's get started with a little bit of kind of going back into the past so that we can understand how you've got into this present moment and what you're hoping to do in the future. But can you give us a little background on yourself? I know you've mentioned before you've kind of grew up in an alternative religion with your family system.
Mhm.
Maybe you can just describe that a little bit for us.
Yeah, so I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness,
Okay.
and then kind of got out of that when I was around 14. I was never baptized as a witness,
Mhm.
but I was raised that way. And it was very different from like mainstream society. In school, for instance, I never celebrated any holidays, didn't salute the flag, no extracurricular activities. However, I would stand when
Yeah.
everybody else would salute the flag. I would stand out of respect. That's what I was taught, to respect the nation, but not to pledge my allegiance to it. So that's quite a bit different from like mainstream
Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
but go ahead.
What was that like as a child to be functioning so different than all of your classmates?
Um, it made me kind of feel like an outsider.
Mhm.
I wasn't really, the same as everybody else. I wasn't really part of the group totally. Um, which now in retrospect, I'm thankful for because it's given me the ability to have a different perspective on things,
Mhm.
um, to not just accept what everybody else accepts as reality. So I'm grateful for that, but I think it did make me kind of an easy target for bullying
Yeah, for sure.
because I stood out as different, and people saw that and kind of targeted me, I think. So that was difficult.
And how did you cope with that?
Mm, painting, playing with toys, using my imagination. I played a lot by myself as a kid,
Mhm.
and loved it. Loved it. I would have whole stories and things that I would make up playing with toys and stuff, and that's one way I coped with it. But later on, I was sexually molested when I was 8, and that was like pretty hard to deal with at that age. Went from being kind of naive and innocent to now the world is a dangerous place, and not everybody's friendly. People will hurt you,
Mhm.
and dealing with that kind of reality at 8 years old was pretty difficult. Affected my self-esteem and whatnot.
Mhm.
But I was also diagnosed with Crohn's disease and sacroiliac spondylitis when I was 14.
Okay, so I'm familiar with Crohn's. I'm not familiar with the other one. So Crohn's being a digestive disorder, but the other one you're mentioning, can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so they're both autoimmune disorders.
Okay.
And Crohn's is basically arthritis of the intestine. And the sacroiliac spondylitis is arthritis of the low spine,
Wow.
of the sacrum.
Yeah.
Um, Causes a lot of pain. And I was diagnosed with that and then was put on opiates at
Mm.
age 14.
Wow, that's heavy for
Yeah.
I mean, already like just until, being in school as a very young kid and then sexual abuse and then, health diagnoses and then of course opioids. How did that impact you?
Well, I used it, and it helped my pain tremendously.
Mhm.
But the problem was is that it also affected my emotions.
Yeah, I imagine it's helping your physical pain, but then probably unconsciously helping your emotional pain as well.
It did. It helped me deal with the sexual abuse.
Mm.
Kind of numbed out those feelings, and being different, self-esteem issues, fear, resentment toward what happened. And it kind of numbed that out and allowed me to feel more comfortable in my own skin.
And so how long did they keep you on the opioids for that?
I think until I want to say 32.
Whoa.
It was, yeah, it was back in 2014 that I got off the opiates. Um,
And the doctors were okay keeping you on that for like a decade and a half?
I guess so. And it kept progressing. I'd go to more potent medications. I'd have the dosage increased, and it just kept escalating until 2014.
Okay. And so then what happened in 2014?
I died. I had an overdose from heroin.
Okay. So you were starting to use some street drugs as well?
I was, because what would happen is I'd run out of the prescription
Mhm.
because I'd take a little bit more than was prescribed. And I think I was doing that because of the emotions.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure.
So it would settle my mind, it would settle my body, and I could concentrate
Mhm.
and think about things. And I went to Vassar College and studied philosophy.
Awesome.
So it would settle my mind down enough so I wasn't feeling those emotions, and I could concentrate and think about things that I wanted to think about.
So it kind of cleared out all the noise and allowed you to just narrow in to things that were more
It
important.
did, but I'd take too much.
Okay. So were you
And
taking that through college and at what point did you get into college first and have the NDE, or did you have the near death experience and then help me with the timeline a little bit?
Sure. So when I was, let's see, I dropped out of school in the ninth grade because I just hated school. I hated the teachers. I hated the students. I thought it was bull and wanted out. And so I went to work at that time. And then at age 21, I was in a really bad fist fight and had a total blackout. The guy kicked me in the face 3 times. He was wearing steel-toed boots, and it was just a complete blackness. And after that, I just started questioning my identity because I believed at that time that I was going nowhere in life. I was going to amount to nothing, that I was stupid, pretty much good for nothing. And when I had that fist fight, I realized that I was, mortal. My life could be taken at any moment. And I started questioning those beliefs about myself at that time. So when I was 21, after that fist fight, I started reading every book I could get my hands on about self-development, spirituality, that kind of thing, and listening to CD after CD, audio cassette after audio cassette, just study, study, study. And come to find out, I had a passion for learning. I loved it. Didn't know that up till that point.
Mm-hmm.
Loved learning new things about myself and the world and how it all worked.
Mm-hmm.
So questioned my identity, and then I decided to test it. Let's see if I am stupid.
And
Let's
so,
see if this is a true belief. Is this true?
yeah, did you die from the fist fight? Was that like a out of body experience? Was it a death? What happened with that?
It was a near-death experience, I would say, but it was a total blackness, like the absence of everything.
Okay, yep.
And yet my consciousness was somehow still there to perceive the nothingness.
Mm. Can you describe that
Um,
if there's words for it?
yeah. So you're watching a TV show,
Mm-hmm.
and then let's say you're in a dark room, right? And the TV's on,
Mm-hmm.
and then you shut off the TV. Just you're watching a show, and then boop, gone. That's what it was like.
No sound, no images, nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
Okay. And how long were you in that state? Do you know?
It seemed like maybe a minute,
Okay.
and then all of a sudden I regained consciousness.
And that darkness and that just 1 minute was enough to kind of propel you forward into, I got to figure something out here.
Yeah, I went to the hospital the next day,
Mm-hmm.
and he said that if there were 3 more pounds of pressure behind the last kick, that his boot would have gone into my brain.
Boy.
And like even to this day, like I can't feel my front teeth. So there was some nerve damage.
Okay. Wow. That's
But
pretty.
Martin Heidegger, he's a German philosopher,
Mhm.
said that that people sometimes realize the possibility of their own non-existence, and that is kind of a, can propel a person into philosophy.
Yeah,
So it got me thinking.
I imagine it did. Yeah. Okay, so bring us forward. So you are attending college, you're wanting to learn and self-development and all these things, and take me through a little bit further
Yeah.
into your journey.
So I started questioning my identity. I decided to test some of the limiting beliefs that I had.
Mhm.
One of them was that I was stupid.
Right.
So I went and got my GED.
Mhm.
And then I was like, okay, that wasn't too difficult. I'm going to go to college. So I went to a 2-year community college where I graduated with an associate's degree.
Mhm.
And then, I had that passion for learning.
Absolutely.
And someone saw that and recommended that I go into a program called Exploring Transfer. And it's a program administered through the community colleges to show community college students what it's like to go to an Ivy League institution.
Awesome.
Yep. So I ended up going to Vassar College for a summer intensive,
Mhm.
and it was two classes, two full Vassar courses over a 6-week period, and I aced both classes.
Were you pretty impressed with yourself when you were like, hey, I just got into an Ivy League school?
Yeah, yeah, I was, and I was pretty impressed with myself when I got a 4.0. Like I thought I was supposed to be stupid. I was supposed to be going nowhere in my life. I couldn't do that. Well, come to find out, those beliefs were false.
Yeah. And what an amazing thing when the limiting beliefs fall away and you realize how much power you do have.
Absolutely. And after that 6-week period, I applied to Vassar full time and was awarded a full scholarship.
Good for you. That's great.
Yeah, and graduated from there with a philosophy degree. It wasn't my first choice. I applied to Harvard,
Mhm.
but apparently you have to have a high school diploma.
Okay.
So I settled for Vassar.
Not a bad settle.
It was a great experience.
Yeah, good. Okay. And so so you did say the addiction was still happening through there. So you managed even on a ton of substances and still coping with a lot of pain and trauma, it sounds like.
Mm.
And we're still able to do extraordinarily well. And then are you sober? How long have you been sober?
Yeah, I've been sober and clean since 2014, so going on 10 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But yeah, during that whole educational journey, I was addicted to opiates.
And did people know?
Most people didn't know.
Okay. And
I
how
was
do
good at hiding it.
you keep that hidden?
Subterfuge.
Yeah.
um, you know, lying, hiding the fact that I'm taking the medication, not talking about it with people, um,
And they
just
didn't
being
notice,
sneaky.
yeah, they didn't notice any behaviors, or did you just kind of like poo-poo those away when people would raise concerns, or were they not raising concerns?
My mother would raise concerns. Close family members who knew that I was taking the medications. But I had friends, that I would use the drugs with. Um, and that I had companionship, a group of friends that I would hang out with. And a lot of them were false friends. I was pretty generous and likable kind of guy, give you the shirt off my back. But inside, I was in inner turmoil
And so,
constantly.
yeah, when you say false friends for the benefit of the addiction community, can you just speak to that a little bit when they're kind of thinking like, yeah, these are my buddies and they're helping me and supporting me. What do you know now that you didn't know then about that?
Mm, that I had these people in my life so I wouldn't be lonely. So I'd have someone to talk to and share some companionship with. But in reality, the bottom line was the drugs. That was the common denominator. A lot of the people, we didn't even have much in common. I would talk to them about spiritual things or philosophy, stuff like that. And um, they were just, oh, okay. It was just over their head, or they weren't interested. And sometimes I'd have good philosophical, spiritual type conversations with people in that, drug using
Mhm.
time frame. Um, those were great conversations, but still the bottom line was the drugs. It
And-
wasn't our relationship.
Right.
It was, are we going to do drugs together?
Mhm. And that was it.
That was the bottom line.
Yeah. And so how did you get sober?
I had a near-death experience in 2014, which caused me to go into a detox facility for 7 days. And then I went into intensive outpatient services. It's like
Okay.
somewhere you go every day.
Yeah, well, let's back up just to, you had this near-death experience. I don't want to just gloss over that. So I'm assuming this was an overdose.
Yes. Yep.
Okay, if you can just share a little bit about, I don't know if this one was total blackness as well, or there was more to your experience.
Yeah, it was much more, much more. So I was in my mother's apartment in withdrawals for 3 days, sweating, full of anxiety, depressed, anxious, angry, and every problem of my life was in my face, screaming at the top of his lungs, like, this is wrong with your life, that's wrong with your life. Um, Whoops, my baby. Then let's see. So I'm waiting on the guy to show up, right? I'm in this miserable state of anxiety, and it feels like I'm an egg boiling in the frying pan.
Mm.
Um, and I'm looking at the clock. Is the guy ever going to show up? Finally, he gets there, and he brings me a bag of heroin. And again, like I use too much of my medication again, and I'm in withdrawals for 3 days. And this is a cycle that I've been in. And the guy finally shows up, and I'm just so relieved.
Mhm.
And I do the heroin, and it's like steam, all that stress and that anxiety. It's like steam rolling off a lake in midsummer. It just all evaporates. And finally, I feel normal. Finally, I can think straight. I can concentrate and I can relax and I can feel good. And those voices aren't screaming at the top of their lungs anymore. And it felt really great. Like, and then all of a sudden I realized I was dying.
How did you know?
My breathing was like heavy and slow. And it was like I was falling.
Hmm.
Like I was on the couch and my eyes were shut.
Mhm.
And it was like I was getting lower and lower and lower,
Mm.
slower and slower and slower. And then bam, I'm out of my body.
Like above it?
To the side of it,
Okay.
standing next to myself
Mm.
and looking at my body.
And
And
what's going through your head at that point?
it's odd because people ask me that a lot. And it was like I wasn't disturbed by the fact that I was looking at my body. Um, I knew that I was dead,
Mm.
but didn't bother me. I don't know why.
Mhm.
Um, I'm just looking at myself and I'm thinking to myself, what was the point? What was the point of life?
Mm.
I had been raised as a Jehovah's Witness, you know, diagnosed with these autoimmune conditions, addicted to drugs, had an NDE fist fight, questioned my identity, went back to school. This whole, my life, right? The story of my life. What was the point of it? That's what I was just sitting there like, what was the point of all of this?
Are
And
you
then,
able to answer that question now?
what's that?
Are you able to answer that question now?
Yeah,
Wait.
yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
we'll get to that, but you can go ahead and finish this aspect of it. So you're staring at yourself going, well, what the hell is the point of this?
Yeah. Um, let's get back to that question about the meaning of my life. But um, I'm standing there thinking that I become aware of a presence
Mhm.
and I don't see anything. There's nothing else in the room. I just, you know how like sometimes you can tell if someone's watching you.
Sure. Yeah.
You just get a feeling.
Mhm.
It was like that. There was a presence there. And the next thing I know, everything changed. It was like the holodeck of Star Trek. Like this, for those of you who don't watch Star Trek, it's like this advanced holographic computer program, and you speak to it, and you say, "I want to be on the surface of the moon," for instance, and everything around you changes, and then there you are, three-dimensional, every detail on the surface of the moon. You can talk to anybody, You can go anywhere, you can do anything in this holodeck, they call it on Star Trek. That's what it was like. And everything around me changed. And I was shown two things. I was shown the future life that I could have had,
Which was,
which was a joyful, happy existence where I'm living life to my full potential. You know, I have a relationship, children, living in a house, helping people. I was shown image after image after image of all these people that I would never meet,
um,
how their
interesting.
lives wouldn't improve because they had met me. The good that I could have done, but wouldn't happen in the world.
Wow, that's pretty powerful.
The joys I could have experienced, but now will never experience because I'm done.
Okay.
And then the other thing I was shown were all the people that were affected by my death.
Mhm.
So like the funeral, the words that were said at the funeral, the conversations between family members, the friends that were affected by my death. And in particular, I have this crystal clear memory because now, like 10 years later after this, the memories have kind of faded.
Sure. Sounds pretty
Uh,
specific, though.
yeah,
Pretty detailed experiences there.
yep. But I was shown like hundreds of images
Mm.
and they've faded with time. But the one that hasn't faded is my mother finding my dead body on her couch.
Mm.
And I was shown how she walked in. She was out in field service as a Jehovah's Witness. And she came in and found my dead body on her couch. And I was like discolored. And there was pus running out of my mouth. And the moment she saw me, she had all of these memories raising me as a little baby. She had memories of my first steps, my first words, my first foods. And I could see all of these memories.
Ugh,
And I could see the joy of the memory.
my eyes, that's a rough one to see. I can't even imagine. Keep going.
Image after image. She finds my dead body. She has all these images of raising me, these tender, loving images of raising me as a baby. And then she starts screaming, "My God, oh my God, this can't be happening. No, no, please, no, my God, my baby, my little baby, my little baby, no, my baby, baby, my baby."
Mm. And so that impacted you in what way?
So that blew my mind. Um, it crushed me. And after that happened, it was like, boom, I'm back in the room, standing next to my body. And I'm just floored. And I'm like, please don't let me die. And I just start like praying. And to whatever presence there was in the room, I don't let me die. I can't die. I can't let this happen. I'm willing to do anything, anything to avert this. And then I heard a voice say, "Now your life is over and you wasted it." And then again, I was just begging, begging, begging.
Yeah.
I'll do whatever it takes. I will do whatever you direct me to do. And then boom, I'm back in my body,
Alive.
alive, gasping for breath.
Okay.
So
So
chew on that, ladies and
yeah,
gentlemen.
that's a pretty intense, like not only visually, but emotionally tough experience.
Hmm.
Um,
And you can imagine how many mothers out there going through this.
Tons. I can't even imagine, but yes, tons. Um, did you know that your mom loved you that much?
We're pretty close
Mhm.
growing up, but I don't think I realized the depth of it.
Mhm.
And I certainly didn't realize the consequences of my actions.
Mm. Yeah, how you were impacting other people. Yeah. Okay, so we will go back to the other question of what do you believe the purpose of your life is now?
I would say to be of service to others.
Mhm.
So it's to do as well as I can do in this life, so I can be present and centered in order to be of service.
Beautiful. Yeah.
It's pretty simple,
Yeah, simple but not always easy, right?
right?
Simple concept, but when we're faced with challenges in life, it can feel tough. So, so you mentioned that you went into a detox program, and this was like the start of like doing whatever it takes. So
Yep.
can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah. When I came to from that whole thing, I immediately called crisis, and they got me into a 7-day detox.
Mhm.
So that was hell, because I'd been on this medicine for a long time, and went through this detox for 7 days, then went into intensive outpatient. So I would attend a meeting every morning, and I did that for like 2 months. And then I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous
Yep.
and worked the 12 steps to the very best of my ability.
Mhm.
I went all in,
Good for you.
because I knew that if I didn't, I was maybe going to relapse or something was going to happen. I had to find a way to live without these substances
Mhm.
while being happy.
Yeah.
Um, I went to these meetings and I saw hopeless alcoholics, and they were laughing and joking around and having a great time. And I was like, wow, that was evidence to me that these people knew something that I didn't know.
Joy,
So
it sounds like.
yeah, they were joyful.
Yeah. And you're like, I don't know what that is.
Yep. And to me, it was evidence that that they had something that I wanted, and I knew I had to find another way to live.
Mhm.
And I was full of anxiety and grief and self-esteem issues and all this different stuff happening with me, and I had to figure out how to deal with that. So I went all in with Alcoholics Anonymous and worked the 12 steps. It was like a spiritual refinement process.
Mhm.
Um, and then, a year later, I was having a hard time after I worked the steps, and I was praying, and had a visitation by what I would call an angelic entity. I couldn't see it, but it was like a light coming through my ceiling while I was taking a shower, oddly enough. I had been praying that morning for help, and down through the ceiling came this energy, and it pierced every part of me, like it was like the sun, the rays of the sun just pouring down on me and going through my body. And I started having all of these thoughts, like I'm not worthy for this experience. um, I've done X, Y, and Z. I have X, Y, and Z faults. I'm not. And then this, whatever this thing was, didn't care about any of that. It was like, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever. I love you.
Mhm.
And it just pierced me with this loving, radiant energy of total non-judgment.
Sounds like a motivator.
It felt so good, and it gave me the energy and the determination to keep going, like I'm on the right track.
Mhm.
But that's for those of you who don't know about the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. That's what they're designed to do, is to give you a spiritual awakening or a spiritual experience.
And so for somebody who's an Alcoholics Anonymous and hasn't had that yet and was experiencing all of that self-doubt and wanting to give up, what would you say to them if they haven't had that Experience.
And they're in Alcoholics Anonymous,
Or
I
NA
would say
or anything.
to work the steps. There's a lot of people in these 12-step recovery programs who they attend,
Mhm.
but they haven't worked the steps. And if that's you, I would say dive in, like get your feet wet, find yourself a good sponsor, and work those steps because they will transform your life. Um, and then if maybe you've worked the steps and you're in Alcoholics Anonymous, I would suggest finding help. Contact me. Let's talk about it. No strings attached. I've got, you know, I can give you an hour free and we can talk about it.
I love that. What a generous offer. Yeah. So, for example, somebody who might be attending like AA, but then being like, oh, I can still drink on the weekends. I'm going to AA. Like that
Right.
example of like you're attending, but you're not working the steps, right?
Yeah.
Just basically coming up with a way to justify and lie to yourself.
And then it's like the alcohol or the drug use is really a symptom
Mhm.
of a deeper issue.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's about getting to the roots of those issues
Yeah.
and transforming your life.
Yeah. And so, Brennan, you did it, say a little while back, there was this resentment, this was the anger, low self-esteem, and just, it sounds like you were really angry, really resentful at one time. And can you explain what it felt like to live in that body in that space and like what the behaviors were and how
Mhm.
you can now in hindsight see yourself impacting others?
Yeah. Um, so, like, on the one hand, I was resentful to what people did to me in the past.
Mhm.
For instance, the sexual molestation.
Sure, of course.
I was resentful about that. But
Mhm.
on the other hand, I was living kind of an angry lifestyle.
Mhm. Can you explain that for me? Like what
Yeah, like
does an angry lifestyle look like in your experience?
things don't go my way, and
Mhm.
I'm upset about it. Um, this should be happening in my life, but it's not, and that's irritating to me. um, Someone cuts me off in traffic, and I get heated.
Just like
Um, what's that?
just instantly.
Yeah, I'm just like, ugh, like what a jerk, like um, angry and feeling powerless, frustrated. That things don't go my way. Sometimes things happen that are great, and I feel good for a minute, but then I'm back to in that reality of being kind of an angry person, just
And
upset, stressed out.
when you felt powerless, what was the behavioral reaction to that?
What do you mean?
Like, well, when you were in a state of feeling like I can't control this, it shouldn't be going this way, I'm feeling powerless. What was the reaction or response to whatever incident that was occurring that you felt
Hmm.
powerless to? Because clearly you're not powerless, but the belief
Hmm.
at that time was I'm powerless. So what was then the reaction?
Complaining to my family,
Mhm.
to my friends about it, kind of spreading my that energy of frustration and sometimes rage.
Yeah, that's what I'm actually really looking to hear is
Hmm.
rage. Like,
Taking papers and just throwing them off my table.
mhm.
Um, Responding to Facebook messages in a hateful way. Um, Swearing, at people. Just it wasn't right, and it was that rage was inside of me, but also this deep fear.
Well,
And
what was the
like
fear?
just so many fears that I'm not good enough. Um, I'm afraid that people, what do people think about me? Do they like me? Do they think I'm attractive? Maybe not. And that's scary. Um, Scared of how is life going to play out? Am I going to die and my mom's not going to be proud of me? Um, Uncertainty.
Oh, that's a lot. Yeah. And so that those things, the fear was the root of your rage. Is that accurate to say?
I'd say they were intertwined,
Yeah.
definitely. But
Okay.
it's like these inner demons.
Mm.
And the past resentments were tied in. I think they were coming out sideways without a conscious awareness of it.
Mhm.
That made my reactions to what was happening in my life that I didn't like worse.
Could you see that at the time that all these things that you were afraid of, your behaviors are actually making it worse, but you couldn't, you didn't have an awareness of that.
No.
And what did it take to to become aware of it?
Um, Going through the steps,
Mm.
because in the steps you have to confront your resentments and you have to confront your fears. Uh, so that increased my awareness of them for sure.
Mhm.
But it was a process in learning how to let those things go. And I'm happy to say now that like 10 years ago, I was broke, living in a little apartment, cramped little apartment, surrounded by false friends, full of anxiety, depression, self-esteem issues, rage. And now it's like the opposite. Like that's why I'm developing this course, Quantum Forgiveness, because it's like that show, Quantum Leap.
Yeah. And so can you take us through how you got from these incredible fears, these really difficult emotions to like, here I am on the other side? Was it like all AA? Were there other things that were contributing? I mean, how did you get from this to like this free life?
Yeah. So it started out with AA,
Mhm.
and I started sponsoring people in AA. So that's like the 12th step.
Yeah.
You bring the message to other people. So I started doing that and I enjoyed it. And then that gave me kind of going through the steps. It was almost like I was initiated by a higher power
Mhm.
into a new purpose or a new destiny that I was being pulled towards. And I loved helping people and seeing their lives improve. So I started doing that more and more. But along the way, this is a 10-year span. I was studying other self-development programs and spiritual systems and things like that and putting it into action. Um, and what was your question?
Just were there other modalities other than the AA, which you're answering, but really, how did you come like full circle to get to
Mm,
the other side? Not that once are get to a great place of healing, that you won't have other challenges in life, but
mhm,
I mean, it was such a dramatic change for you.
mm,
Just wondering what you can share and offer other people who are like, this is never going to end, and like, how do I
mhm,
there, and they're kind of in the crux of just the challenge.
yeah. Um, so there were definitely other modalities, like meditation, and
Mhm.
I studied shamanism
Yeah.
and prayer
Mhm.
and chakras. Like I went all in exploring this stuff. But interestingly, back in 2018, I ended up investing in a course about creating a business. So what I was able to do, so I invested in this course, taught me how to make webinars, online courses, different things like that, how to create a business basically, and studied that. Then I went to coaching school and got certified as a spiritual coach. And I was able to put myself in a position where I can get paid to help other people, which I love doing.
Mhm.
So the spiritual awakening mixed with helping others and then starting a business. And I got married, had a baby, bought a house, bought a car. Uh, I have a garden and I have real friends. I'm surrounded by beautiful, wonderful souls,
Mhm.
people who are there. And the bottom line isn't drugs. They're there because they like me and they're interested in what I'm interested in and they want to be of help.
And so how has that having that deeper connection helped you?
Spiritual connection or connection with people.
I would, well, both, but more specifically connection with people, because we were talking about false friends, but now
Mm,
it sounds like you have a really deep, meaningful community of people around you. And
mm.
I'm wondering how that holds you and helps you through everyday challenges.
I have people that, I can talk to openly and frankly about, any problem that I have in my life.
Mhm.
They're there as a support always, and they enjoy talking about the things that I like to talk about.
Mhm.
Um, and it's just great to have a community of like-minded people, people that you really enjoy being with, people that you love talking to, that are there, and they're there to help and they're there to listen, and it's a support. It's great.
Awesome. Well, I'm so happy that you found it because it's hard for people when they're going through like a very isolating
Hmm.
experience, like recovery, um, to get to the point of finding the healthy
Yes.
community.
In the beginning, it's lonely.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think
Very.
that's part of the process. Like you need it. You kind of need
Yeah.
to be lonely to go inward because we have so many distractions in this world that can just take us out of the work. And
Yeah.
so that isolation, although feeling terrible, it has its own purpose. So
That's true.
yeah. So we've
Hmm.
talked a lot about the addiction, but did you feel, was there like a sense of feeling traumatized after the near death experience, or was that solely like an awakening for you?
There wasn't, it was, I would say, more of an awakening. It
Okay.
wasn't traumatizing. What was traumatizing was detox.
Mm, gotcha.
That was like a living hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then like fighting to not return
Mhm.
to the substances, to the people, to the situations.
How have you avoided the relapse?
Um, well, I'm not a doctor,
Mm,
but when I was in detox, they offered me Suboxone. It's like an opiate replacement therapy, but it's actually an opiate.
mhm,
Um, and he said, I was in the middle of like withdrawals, and he's like, "Here's this medicine. I think you should take it." The psychiatrist, and I was, just had that near death experience.
mhm.
I'm like, no. He's like, no, I really think you should take this. Do you realize, Brandon, that opiate addicts have a 98% probability of failure? Do you realize that 98% of people who are addicted to opiates will return to the substance? And I said, I don't care. I guess I'm one of the 2%. And I'm not a doctor. I can't give any kind of medical advice. And, you're not me. Maybe it's the right thing for you, but I'm glad I said no
Mhm.
because I was able to achieve freedom from opiates.
Do you think in the moment where you said, I guess I'm not part of that 2%. Do you think that was the moment that your sense of powerlessness fell away, or do you think it fell away at a different time? Because to me, it sounds like in that moment you were pretty connected to your source.
Mm. I think my powerlessness fell away more, not with that instance, but when I was starting to practice forgiveness.
Okay, tell me more about that.
Well, it was like, so you create a inventory of your fears and resentments in Alcoholics Anonymous. And the first one on the top of my list was the guy who molested me,
Yep.
babysitter, right? And I met with my sponsor, awesome guy, and was going over my resentment list. And first one, the guy who molested me. And he said, well, first of all, Branden, that's terrible that that happened to you. That should never, ever happen to a kid, right? And that's terrible. I'm so sorry. I said, well, thank you. Feels good. He said, let me ask you a question. Have you ever wondered why he molested you? I said, no, I never really thought about that. And he said, well, so the guy was 16 when he did it. And he said, most people learn that from somewhere.
It's true.
So he said, did you ever consider that? And I said, no, I never really thought about that. And he said, well, he very well was probably sexually molested himself as a kid. And I said, wow, I never considered that. He said, you mean to tell me that you've never considered that? And how many years has it been since this happened to you when you were 8 years old? And you've been resenting this guy for that many years, and you've never once considered what may have caused him to do it, that maybe he was sexually molested. I said, no, I never considered that. And then he said, well, if he was sexually molested as a kid, would you feel sorry for him? Yeah, I would. I don't think that should happen to any kid.
So it sounds like it allowed you to have compassion, certainly not to justify the behavior, but it allowed you to have some compassion that this person was
In a
poorly.
way, it did justify his behavior.
Oh, okay.
That's what's so powerful about it.
I guess I can
Because
see.
if he had been sexually molested as a kid, his innocence was taken away.
Mhm.
It explains why he did what he did.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that he didn't cause harm
Right.
or hurt me terribly,
Mhm.
but it explains why he did what he did.
Not making
But
it okay, I guess I should say.
right,
Yeah.
right. It's not making it okay, but it's explaining the why behind people's actions. Like, why do people do what they do? Um, and there's different ways.
That would be great. Next workshop, Branden.
Yes, we could do a whole workshop on that, certainly. But I mean, the reason why I felt empowered was because that one little shift in perspective gave me a whole new view on it. And it gave me the room to be able to maneuver, to step to the side of myself and say, okay, I can let this go, instead of holding on to the anger.
And so what happened for you internally when you were able to do that?
It was like a light bulb moment, an aha, wow kind of because I needed to figure out another way to live, right?
For sure.
And the resentments were destroying me. I needed to figure out a way to let this go. And I mean, it's a bitter pill to swallow, right? It can be. Um, but how much of my life was wasted? How much time did I waste being upset about it?
Mhm.
My focus was on how this guy had hurt me and how I was a victim.
Mhm.
I was a victim and powerless. And the world is a dark place. And there's threats around every corner. And I'm no good. And I'm not going to go anywhere in life because this happened to me. And it's really kind of egocentric, because how many people are there in the world that could be helped by you? And you're spending your time being upset about what's happened in the past, and now that's coming out sideways. You're living a life of drug abuse and getting angry when someone cuts you off in traffic. And that's how you're spending your time and energy, when you could be living a joyful, wondrous life beyond your wild imagination, helping countless people.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you had the light bulb moment.
Thank you. Me too.
I mean, other people might have other light bulb moments, but it sounds like that is clearly what you needed to
Yeah.
shift.
And
And
with that near death experience, like now your life is over and you wasted it.
that's a pretty big wake up.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But it's like God is love, right? People say God is love,
Mhm.
but was like tough love. Like I needed to hear that.
Mm. That we're given what we need, that we, when you were saying earlier, like this shouldn't be happening in my life and that shouldn't be happening. And it's like, it should all be happening for you. It's all happening for you.
Yeah,
We
you
just,
got it.
so all right. Well, Brendan, I just want to thank you so much for being here, so much for offering your course. I will absolutely post in the thing below the video how people can reach out to you, get in touch with you, especially for, offering some sessions to people just trying to get started on the healing journey, and also your program. I think those are tremendous things that you're giving out to the world, and I'm so grateful for the work that you're doing now. So thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me and sharing your story.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
All right. You have a great day, Brendan.